There's been an outcry by residents, councils and businesses in several suburbs around Joburg as the city reveals its plans to introduce paid parking of up to R8.50. Many say it'll be disastrous for local businesses, especially for smaller residential suburbs like Melville and Norwood. The city is due to clarify its plans and address some concerns publicly tomorrow. Nastasia went to Melville to take a look.
The sun is slowly dropping behind 7th Street's row of shops and restaurants, and the afternoon car guards are preparing to end their shift for the day. Most have been working here for years and say they're very concerned about the city's plans.
I think if that thing is going to be here, it's going to kill us here. We won't get anything here.
There's nothing I'm going to do. I'm just going to starve.
While local businesses and councillors say there have been problems with misbehaving informal car guards and agree that paid parking may make the suburbs safer, they're upset that there's been no public consultation on the matter. They're also worried the high parking rates will scare away customers they've been battling to attract back to the area. Nastasia Tay, Eyewitness News, Melville.
The city of Johannesburg is due later this morning to address concerns around the implementation of a planned paid parking scheme for several suburbs, including Melville, Norwood and Fordburg. The system has already been rolled out in Parkhurst, where business owners say it's had a negative impact. Melville councillor Amanda Forsyth says residents and traders will fight any such initiative. She spoke to Nastasia Tay.
Amanda Forsyth says she's proud of Melville's recent turn of fortune, but she says this could be at risk. Local businesses say they're worried turnover could drop by up to 50%. Forsyth says the implementation of the paid parking plans without public consultation is much like Gauteng's controversial e-tolling system.
Clearly, it is a system that nobody wants, but they are forging ahead and ramming it down people's throats.
But she says the e-tolling saga has demonstrated the power of public sentiment, and local residents plan to fight the parking scheme. Nastasia Tay, Eyewitness News.
The city of Joburg says it will dramatically increase community engagement on the rollout of paid parking in business nodes across the city. It says it's followed all required procedures to implement the system and there's no legal requirement for further public consultation. But businesses in Parkhurst, where the scheme has already been rolled out, have expressed their outrage, saying they've experienced a drop in turnover of up to 50%. The city's Gabu Tugwane.
A well-managed parking system tends to encourage visitors to business nodes because of available parking space relatively close to the place customers wish to visit.
He says the city recognizes that there's been some unhappiness and they're willing to engage further. Tugwane says councillors have been given all the relevant information relating to the scheme, but councillors have told Eyewitness News a different story, saying they've received no official communication or consultation. The city of Joburg has confirmed it'll be rolling out paid parking in up to 20 areas, with the next round of implementation taking place as soon as next month. The areas affected include Melville, Rosebank, Greenside, Fordburg, Norwood, Parkview and Roodepoort. The city says it's chosen suburbs based on the level of traffic through the area, which they've monitored through surveys. Metro Police Chief Chris Ngobo says they'll do their best to engage motorists.
Ace parking together and ourselves like we did in Braamfontein 2 or 3 weeks before. We issue pamphlets, we issue statements.
The plans have been met with outrage by businesses and residents who say they haven't been consulted at all. The city of Joburg says it will receive just over a quarter of the revenue generated by its new paid parking scheme, due to be rolled out over some 20 areas. The city today elaborated on the implementation of its plans in an attempt to address some of the concerns raised by outraged residents and businesses in the proposed suburbs. Nastasia Tay has more.
After the 1st of June, it will cost you R8 an hour to park street side in more of Joburg's suburbs. The city's legal advisor, Peter de Klerk, says nearly 3/4 of the cash from paid parking will go to the private company contracted to operate the system, Ace Parking. He says the remainder will go to the city, but it won't necessarily go towards road maintenance or to the suburb where it was collected.
So the income that is received from parking meter revenue goes into the general kitty, and the council apportions it for the maintenance of its services.
Businesses and residents say they haven't been consulted about the scheme and are angry they won't directly benefit from the funds. Nastasia Tay, Eyewitness News, Braamfontein.
And the lead story in the Star this afternoon is story I'm going to deal with now. R8 an hour parking fury. Joburg businesses and residents are mobilizing for a fight against curbside parking, and the suburbs named here are Rosebank, Roodepoort, Melville, Florida, Norwood and Fordburg. Well, let me deal with that particular story. I've saw another story on this about Parkhurst residents launching a legal bid. They want details of the tender process revealed. Mervyn Smith's the lawyer acting on behalf of the group, calling themselves the Concerned World-Class African Citizens. No doubt getting inspiration from the opposition to Urban Tolling Alliance's successful interdict application. I've got Mervyn Smith joining me on the line. Mervyn, thank you for your time. Good afternoon.
Hello, David.
Can you explain to us what you're asking from the city of Joburg?
Yeah, sure. David, you mentioned 4 suburbs, but the list it runs into almost 21 suburbs.
Is
Why
that
I say
right?
almost is because it's not complete.
Okay.
So what has happened? I'm not sure. There's been quite a lot of publicity so far about the Parkhurst parking.
Parkhurst and Braamfontein tend to get the suburbs named the most in this one, Mervyn.
Yeah.
I had no idea the list ran into the 20s.
Yeah, well, Parkhurst is number 3 on the list, and Northcliffe at the moment is number 21 on the list. So the objection really stems from the fact that the system was unilaterally imposed on the Parkhurst residents, and the complaint is not limited to Parkhurst. We've identified let me say, my clients being the concerned world-class African citizen,
yes,
because it will extend to all the suburbs. But at the moment, it's the target is Parkhurst. So at the moment, what we've done is we've approached the city in a formal manner to produce the documentation to support the tender process and the ultimate contract that was entered into, in order to satisfy the residents that due process was done and that everything was done above board. The complaint really is this, that if one has sight of the contract that has been produced, of the 8 rand, 6 rand of the 8 rand will be going to the contractor, being Ace Parking, and 2 rand of the 8 rand will be going to the city of, not so much the city of Johannesburg, but the JMPD. The JMPD has identified this money as a revenue stream, but not insofar as putting this money back into the system of fixing roads, fixing potholes, fixing pavements. It's purely just a hole in which they're going to be putting money.
If it was going back to the Joburg Roads Agency, it might be a bitter pill, but at least I'd be able to swallow it. But the fact is the vast sum of money is going to enrich a private organisation, Ace Parking Services.
No, exactly. But it doesn't just stop with Ace, because Ace has subcontracted their responsibilities to a company called Service.
Oh, yes.
So it makes it a little bit more complicated. The contract that we have had sight of makes provision for the fact that the rights can't be subcontracted to another party without the consent of the city of Johannesburg. And I'm sure everybody watched Carte Blanche last night, and it was conceded by Mrs. Paulson on behalf of Ace that they didn't have the authority of the city to subcontract to Service. So there's a number of different grounds upon which we intend to deal with this problem. But I must just mention that at this point, the mandate from the citizens is merely to get information from the city before embarking on some type of litigation.
What?
Of course, since the litigation with the e-tolling problem, it just adds weight to the approach that they intend, or that they will probably consider taking, is some form of interdict, and on the basis of a review process to investigate the circumstances of the contract.
I understand. This is the start of the process. So it's it's an application to get this information. It seems to me, though, that they weren't giving you this information. You've had to go and rely on the courts to order this.
Well, that we produced a list of some, I have a document here, of some 15 items. Items not just limited to a particular item, but minutes of meetings, resolutions, everything related to this process that started, with a tender. We received, through the Access of Information Act, some 3 or 4 documents which hardly, produced any information that we could rely on. So we've gone back to the city and we've put them on terms now to provide this information. And depending on their response or lack of response, we will make a decision accordingly.
Mervyn, we'll stay in touch with you about that. Thank you very much for your time, Mervyn Smith there, attorney representing the concerned world-class African citizens and some of the other areas: Norwood, Melville, Corlett Drive, Melrose Arch, Brixton, Emerentia, Rosebank, Rhodoport, Burnham, Parkview, Sandton, Florida, Fordburg, Greenside, Linden, Rivonia, Craighall Park and Northcliffe. Are just some of the... I'm just going to have a look at that list, which, as Mervyn says, runs into more than 20.